May I introduce to you what I feel is a game-changing piece of hardware for voiceover. Meet the SPL Channel One MK3.
From the mind of Mark Yoshimoto Nemkov.
So excuse the handheld camera, but I have the SPL Channel One MK3 here on my desk in my tiny little booth. But I wanted to show you what this thing is doing. Now, there are so many features here that are really cool for voiceover. Now, first and foremost, you are hearing it with no extra de-essing, no extra EQ involved. What you are listening to is the pure sound of the analog chain right here. So we've got a bunch of different things going on with the SPL Channel One MK3. It does a lot. So let's just go through them real quick. And I want to show you something that I think is pretty cool. Now, when it comes to voiceover, right, the de-esser is really important for me because I have a very sibilant voice, so I've been using a bunch of different plug-in de-essers, and nothing has sounded quite as natural as this one. I mean, just the de-esser alone, for me, the fact that this is the best sounding de-esser I've ever used is huge. Now, and you can see there's like a little indicator here, right, that shows you when it's detecting sibilance. And even if I just go like that, just really, really light, it's picking it up. It's detecting that these are sibilant frequencies. And the de-esser in the Channel One MK3 is even more interesting because it doesn't just mitigate the sibilance. It kills it. It does like a phase reversal on it, and it kills the sibilant frequencies. So the result is something that feels really natural. And what I really like about it, there's a low and a high component to it. Let me just take it out completely. All right, so here it is, right? Without it, it's you can definitely hear there's more sibilance, right? Sorry about that. And if I just enable the high end, right, sibilance, it fixes a little bit of it. But then I do both the high and the low end. Sibilance. Listen to that. It sounds so much more natural. And then there's just one knob here to control the intensity of the effect. So right about there, I kind of like it right about there for what I'm doing. Sibilance. It sounds much more natural. So right away, the de-esser alone, right there, is worth the price of entry for me because I've never found a de-esser that works that good. Now, what is a Transient Designer? This is super, super cool. For voiceover, this may be the ticket right here. These two things right here. Because the Transient Designer is so interesting. What the Transient Designer does is it manipulates your transients, the onset of your signal, right, which usually comes with a spike. But the Transient Designer will allow you to do two different things. Now, the attack will help you either enhance the onset of that transient, so ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, 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 right? But what I found it does is just I roll it back a little bit, right about here, just between 0 and -3. And it completely mitigates the possibility of me popping my P's. Now, I feel like I have really good mic technique, and I don't pop my P's anyway, but occasionally there will be a little bit of a plosive energy that comes out, like on P's and B's. So, but here, I'm going to put it on 0, pa, 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 right? But if I dial it back just a little bit, pa, 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 pa. Listen to that. Just a tiny little touch of that, the tiniest little touch of that mitigates the plosive before it hits the signal chain. How great is that? It's like now you don't need a pop filter because you just dial that back. And that initial onset of your transient is basically it's not spiked. It's not completely killed. It's just lowered enough that you don't get that explosive plosive that, that's going to have to go back and you're going to have to fix that or do a retake. And then this sustain is really cool because what sustain does is, well, what it says. It's really helping me for voiceover. What it's specifically doing is it's allowing the really great resonant frequencies in the mid-range to sustain a little bit. So it makes my voice sound actually even more full. So I'm going to show you all this in a second. I'm going to take everything out of the chain, right? But listen to this. So I don't know if you can really hear it so much here, but this is with it in. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is with it out, testing 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Feel how much more full that sounds? But it actually even sounds more natural because I think it's almost the sustain that it's imparting is almost like the sustain that you get in a natural room, in a natural environment, as opposed to like a closed off booth, right? So again, here it is with it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Listen to that. Listen to how cool that is. So just these two things, the De-Esser and the Transient Designer, are so awesome that right here, I mean, for voiceover, what this does, the Transient Designer basically takes away the pop filter that you have to use. So, I mean, no pop filter, no De-Esser. Now, the other thing this thing does is it has a tube saturation circuit. Now, of course, it has a high-pass filter. You know what that is. You know what pad is. You know what, phase inverse is. But the tube saturation is great. So here, I'm going to take the tube saturation completely out. You may have heard that relay click off, right, when I did that. So this is with no tube saturation at all. And I'm just going to kind of dial it up a little bit, and you feel it getting more full, and you feel it getting more forward, right? And it's really popping. So if you really want it to be aggressive, right, you can really dial that up. Now, if you go all the way, if you dime it, it starts to break up a little bit. But if you really want aggressive, nice sound like that, really full, nice tube warmth, you can do that. I like to have it like right around here. Just give it a little bit of lively tube harmonic goodness in there. And what's amazing about this is that the tube is running at 250 volts. So it's running at its proper full voltage. And the filament's running, I think, at 12.6 or something like that. So, I mean, the tube is really optimized to be running at full tube power. So you're really getting the sound of the tube. A lot of like channel strips and stuff. A lot of stuff they'll run the tube. They run a tube at what they call it a starved plate. So it's not running at its full power. You're just getting a little fizz off of it. But this, you're really getting the full nature of the harmonics of a tube in there. I believe it's some form of I'm not sure what kind of tube they have in there, but I believe it's some kind of triode. So I think it's some kind of 12AX7 variant, but I will get back to you on that. Now, this I like a lot. Here, I'm going to turn this light off so that you can see. How cool is that? The VU meter, an actual VU meter, and the ballistics on this VU meter are really cool. I mean, I feel like the bounce on it is very hypnotic. But I love this VU meter, and I love the color of it, too, in the booth like that. And so I think it's really neat. Oh, you can kind of almost see my Wawa t-shirt reflected in the VU meter. So, and then you've got these two things, which I really haven't played with too much. But tube post, right, this actually changes where the tube harmonic circuit comes in. So the tube saturation circuit happens right after the preamp. But if you change it to post, it happens post EQ. Right? And so you can do this. You can have the EQ come in before the tube saturation circuit, or this has happened post compressor. Either way, it changes where it is, but I haven't really found it to make that much difference in what I do yet. So that's something I'm going to explore a little bit more. Now, the compressor is pretty cool too. Compressor is one knob. I'm going to take it out. So this is without the compressor. And I mean, the compressor does add a little bit of color to it. So it's not a completely transparent compressor. It adds just a little bit, but it's really adding more fullness than anything. And that you can mitigate. If it feels like it's a little bit too much, you can go over here and turn the EQ on, right? I have it off. Here it's on again. I'm sorry. It's on. And then you just, maybe if you bump back like 100 a little bit off that, then it really doesn't feel like the compressor is adding that low end so much. But I like that. So you have this EQ here, right? Middle high frequency going from 680 to 15K, low mid frequency going from 30 to 700. And then you got this air band. And the air band is 19K fixed. And that does add a little bit of air. So if you want to add just a little touch of detail, if your mic sounds a little dark, and you want to add just a little touch of 19K just to give it a little bit of excitement, right there. Output knob, mute button, right? So this is really cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you real quick. I'm going to take everything out of the circuit. Oh, hold on. No, I got to show you something else. This is really neat. So mic A and mic B. So you can plug two mics into the Channel One Mark III. How awesome is that, right? You have two mics and they're going through the same the same circuit, right? Same settings, everything. So especially if you want to compare two mics. So this is great if I want to compare the Loudon Atlantis and the Loudon Clarion. So the Atlantis here is on mic A. Let me switch it to B. And when I switch it to B, there's like a full second of silence as it mutes the circuit, so you hear some relays going and then it pops back on. And here we are on the Loudon Clarion. So the Loudon Clarion is running through the exact same circuit as the Loudon Atlantis. So we have them both on the minus 10 dB setting. So this is really kind of a little bit of a comparison, kind of a quick comparison between them. So again, so here is the Clarion. I'm going to switch it back to the Atlantis on mic A. And here we are back on the Atlantis. So, I mean, how great is that for voiceover? Because now you can have your 416, your U87, or two different mics set up through the same rig. And again, what you're listening to is just the pure analog rig, just going right into the MT48. There's nothing else happening other than the gate on the MT48 and basically the converter. So I'm going to take all the little accoutrements off of this real quick. Right, so I'm going to take the tube saturation out. I'm going to take the Transient Designer out. I'm going to take the compressor out. I'm going to take the EQ out. So this is what it sounds like here. I'll even take the de-esser out. So this is what it sounds like naturally, right? I mean, you know, that's not a bad sound at all. Let me add the de-esser back in. And then so now we're going to rebuild that sound. So listen to this sound and listen to how big this sound gets once I start adding everything in. So first and foremost, we're going to dial up that tube saturation. I'm going to do Transient Designer last. Here's the compressor. We're going to pop the compressor in. We're going to add a little bit of 100 right here. And then we're going to turn this on. All right, so now, so we got everything on. Now listen to the change when I turn on the Transient Designer. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Listen to how huge that sounds. It sounds huge, but it sounds natural. That's what I love about this. The SPL Channel One MK3. There's no other box I've found that does what this does. And honestly, I think this premium sound for me is the best sound for voiceover that I've ever heard. And I have to tell you that this rig has been extremely successful in the booth. So I have done a lot of work with this over the last couple of weeks. I actually did about 140 all-state tags the last couple of days through this, and it was flawless and perfect. And what I loved about it was that the sound I was getting out of this, I was actually using it without the compressor. So the sound I was using for the tags was this sound. And it was great because I didn't have to do any additional processing afterwards. What I was able to print to my DAW right through the MT48 and cut 140 of these tags back to back to back to back, and it made it a lot easier because I didn't have to deal with plugins or anything like that. And quite honestly, we have to talk about this because I've been starting to feel like my plugins sound a little bit, how should we say, inauthentic. So I really feel like analog. Analog is the way to go to sound natural. Natural, it just sounds much more natural to me. And I think that's really important because in voiceover, you're trying to make a connection with another human being, and that natural presence is really important. So what do you think, the Channel One MK3? We are definitely going to be talking a lot more about this, but I had to show you this because it is so cool. And thank you to SPL for sending this over for me to demo, because I am really starting to think that the older vintagey gear that we've been using, the stuff that was really designed in the era of tape and really before digital, especially digital home recording, became a big thing. I'm starting to feel like the new modern audio technology that we're seeing is really much more effective for modern voiceover. But what do you think? What do you think of the SPL Channel One MK3? This thing, I think, is absolutely incredible. I love this thing. What are you thinking? Leave a comment. All right, until next time, this is Mark Yoshimoto Nemkov, fading to black.